Classification, the study of organisms based on similarities and differences. Classification is also known as taxonomy. This was invented by a gentleman named Carl Linnaeus. What is a living organism? All living organisms have DNA, can grow and develop. They have the ability to reproduce either asexually or sexually. They can respond to stimuli, which means anything that is external that makes an organism respond, like plants can respond to the sun by growing towards it. They also keep homeostasis, which means balance or equilibrium, and they can obtain and use energy. Anything that's living is called biotic. Anything that's not living, like water, soil, air, rocks, those things are called abiotic. Earth's diversity. Why are there so many different organisms on Earth? Earth's unity. Why do some of these different organisms have similar characteristics? Organization of life. We can organize all life by their structure and function. Why organize? Because it allows scientists and people to keep track of the 3 to 10 million different living things on Earth. Classification, again also known as taxonomy, is the grouping of organisms into categories based on their evolutionary relationships, or physical appearance, their common ancestors. Mammals can all be classified together because they all produce milk, are warm-blooded, give live birth, and have hair. They can further be classified into things like bears. Bears are mammals, but all bears are classified together because they have claws, fur, strong upper limbs. Scientists group all living things into the following 6 kingdoms. Kingdom Archaeobacteria belongs to the domain Archaea. Kingdom Bacteria belongs to the domain Bacteria. And then these 4, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia, fall into the domain Eukarya. Domains, Bacteria, Archaea, and Eukarya. Then this picture is focusing on the kingdom Animalia. The phylum that you see here is Chordata. So all animals belong to the kingdom Animalia. The sea star gets taken off when you focus on the phylum Chordata, which means spinal cord. So only the snake, squirrel, fox, and bears have a spinal cord. Then they get more specific. Only mammals are found in the class Mammalia. So the reptile, which is a snake, gets taken out. Then you get more specific. Underneath the order Carnivora are only carnivorous or meat-eating animals. Then the family Euricidae has only the bears, so the fox gets taken out. Then the genus Eurysis is only these type of bears, and finally this is the specific species. So specific, the most specific is species. The broadest or biggest is domain. Classification continued. If you were to take horses, for instance, the domain would be Eukarya, the kingdom would be Animalia, The phylum would be Chordata. The class would be Mammalia. The order would be Perissodactyla, Equidae, Equus, and finally the species for this horse would be this species down here. For this one that's closely related, has the same kingdom, same phylum Chordata, same class Mammalia, same order, same family. The only thing that's different between this horse and this horse is the species here at the bottom. If you notice, the genus is always capitalized, the species is always in lowercase. Animals can mate if they are in the same species, not in the same genus, but in the same species. There are 7 levels of classification that describe a species. The kingdom here is Animalia for all of them. Chordata, which means spinal cord, is the same for all of them. They're all in the same class, which is Mammalia. They're all in the same order. Close, right? The dog and the bear are both in carnivora, but the human is in primate. The family changes. The bear is in Eurycidae, the human is in Hominidae, and Canidae is the dog. Then you get to the genus, the Canis familiaris, that's the dog. The human is a Homo sapien, that's the genus and the species. And then the bear is Eurysis marathus. The more levels of organization that 2 organisms share, the more closely related the 2 organisms are. So in this picture, who is more related to one another? The bear, the human, or the dog? If you said the bear and the dog are more related, you are correct. Both have the order that's the same, carnivora, while the human changes and it's the primate. How do we name organisms we classify? We name animals using something called binomial, which means to name, and nomenclature, which means naming system. So it's a two-name naming system, which is the genus, that's always capitalized, and the species, which is always lowercase. Both are italicized or slanty. These are the genus and the species, genus and the species, genus and the species. That means all of these cats have the same domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, but they have different genus and species. So are they able to mate with one another? If you said or thought, no, they cannot mate with one another, Miss Lima, you are correct. You have to be of the same species to be able to mate with one another. How do we classify exactly? We group organisms together based on anatomical, which means anatomy or body structures, similarities. So the first picture has radial symmetry. The second picture has bilateral symmetry. And the third picture is asymmetrical. So make observations. Ask questions based on observations. The questions have to have yes or no answers. For example, does it have symmetry? Yes. Next question. Is it a circle? Yes. It's a sea urchin then. Organize the questions onto a chart called a dichotomous key. That's radial symmetry. Bilateral symmetry. Questions must have a yes or no answer. So you might have seen this or remembered this from the benchmark and the other benchmark. This one is called a dichotomous key. So you always start with number 1. Using these pictures, number 1 asks, do they eat meat? If so, then go to number 2. If it doesn't eat meat, then do something else. All of these belong to the class Mammalia. The order is called Carnivora. That means, yes, they do eat meat. So if they do eat meat, then go to number 2. Are these animals large in size? Yes, go to number 3. Is this animal a carnivore? That means that they're meat eating. Then you go to number whatever it says. If it wasn't, then you'd go to the other one. Is it an omnivore? Omnivore means that they eat both meat and vegetables. If it's an omnivore, it would eat berries as well as meat. If it's a carnivore, it just eats meat. If it's smaller in size, then it's that bear. If it doesn't eat meat and it eats bamboo, it's a panda bear. Identify this animal. Does it have a longer neck or does it have a shorter neck? Does it have stripes or does it not have stripes? Is the body covered in stripes or is it not covered in stripes? If it had a longer neck, it would be a giraffe. If not, you go to pink. Does this animal have stripes? Yes, it does. If it didn't have stripes, it'd be a horse, but now you go to blue because it does have stripes. Is the body covered in stripes? No, it's not a zebra. Then it must be an okapi. More about the kingdoms. The domain for prokaryotes, there's 2. Part of the bay is bacteria and archaea. Both of these are prokaryotic. Pro rhymes with no. So they have no nucleus for their DNA and no membrane-bound organelles like mitochondria. Characteristics. Archaea are found in extreme environments like boiling water. Thermal vents, those are called thermophiles, meaning that phile or phileo means to love, thermo means heat. If they're in very acidic or non-oxygenated places, those could also be identified as thermophiles. Other types of archaea are called halophiles, not the game Halo. Halo in this case in Latin means salt-loving. So halophile means to love salt. So archaea that lives in the Dead Sea in really extreme or harsh conditions, only archaea can survive there. In conditions like these thermophiles, extreme heat like in volcanoes or thermal vents, only archaea can be found there. The last one is called a methanogen. Methanogen, you can think of methane. Those love methane conditions. Usually prokaryotic or bacteria are single-celled, and there are many different kinds that are found everywhere. Most are beneficial. There are many different sizes and shapes for bacteria. So some can be circles, some can look like rods, and some can look like spirals. In the domain Eukarya, you find these 4 kingdoms: fungi, plants, animalia, and protists. Protists are like amoebas, just like the amoeba sisters. Fungi can be mushrooms, but they can also be fungus, like athlete's foot. That's a fungus. Characteristics of protists are slime molds and algae are protists, and sometimes they are called the odds and ends of the kingdom because it's the members that are so different from one another. Protists include all microscopic organisms that are not bacteria, not animals, not plants, and not fungi. So basically, anything that's left over from the other kingdoms gets thrown into Protista. This is the kingdom fungi. Fungi are mushrooms, mold, mildew. Most fungi are multicellular, meaning have multiple cells, and consist of many complex cells. They also have an outer covering of protein of the cell wall called chitin. Chitin is a carbohydrate. It crunches when you step on it. They have an outer covering that consists of a carbohydrate or many sugared polysaccharide known as chitin. That's why mushrooms crunch when you step on them. Moving on to the kingdom Plantae. This is where all the plants are. Plants are multicellular organisms that produce their own food. If you can make your own food, you're called an autotroph. Auto means own, troph means food. Examples of plants are flowering plants, plants that give flowers, conifers, plants that let go of cones like pine cones or evergreens, mosses, which are the things that you can slip on that are really close to the water because they don't have a lot of roots or any roots, they're non-vascular, and ferns. With over 250,000 species, the plant kingdom is the second largest kingdom of the 6 kingdoms. The animal kingdom is the one that we fall under. It is the largest kingdom with over 1 million known species. There's still a lot to be uncovered. After kingdom comes phylum. Phylum is some of these. Porifera are sponges. Cnidarians, the C is silent, so cnidarians are jellyfish and coral. Echinoderms are starfish and sea urchins. Annelids include all the worms. Mollusca include all the mollusks, like squid, octopus, snails, and clams. This is called the blue ring octopus. It's beautiful. That's a squid. Arthropods include anything like insects, crustaceans or crabs, spiders. All of those are arthropods. Things that have exoskeletons. Some of them have 6 legs, others have 8 legs. These are called arthropods. These also have an exoskeleton that crunch because of a carbohydrate. So when you step on like a cockroach, it goes crunch because of the carbohydrate that's found in their exoskeleton. Okay, so now we're going to focus on the phylum Chordata. Chordate or chordata means that they have a spinal cord. So this is where we fall under. They're specifically going to go into the different classes. So again, we said domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. We're under the domain Eukarya, which are all eukaryotic organisms. We're under the kingdom Animalia, which is all animals. We're under the phylum Chordata, which is anything that has a spinal cord. And now we're going to talk about the different classes of the chordates. We're going to start with the fish. So fish are typically found in the ocean or in rivers or saltwater or freshwater aquatic environments, let's say. Under the phylum Chordata, there's also amphibians. Amphibians are ectotherms. That means that they do not control their own body temperature. This is typically like frogs and newts and salamanders, things of that nature. Those are amphibians. Reptiles. Reptilia are cold-blooded. They do not give live birth. They typically lay eggs. Typically, right? Reptiles, again, are cold-blooded. Another class of the phylum Chordata is aves. Those are the birds. So if you've ever gone to the zoo, if it says aviary, it's because it's talking about the section that has birds. Marsupials are anything that are found typically in Australia, but things like kangaroos and platypus. Those are marsupials or monotremes. A different class which we belong to as humans is Mammalia, the mammals. Mammals give live birth. They do give milk to their young. They do have hair and they are warm-blooded. But as you can see, they can live in aquatic conditions like dolphins or terrestrial conditions like on Earth, like humans and a lot of the other animals or mammals. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next part.